with Chris, and he says, Lee, I'm a native San Diego, and I don't understand how people in San Diego can support the Chokers. You talk about the Padres. The Chargers. Chokers moved to LA, and people aren't loyal to the soil and are like little puppy dogs following abandoned owner.
Yeah, you kind of went off topic there on me. I don't really, you're talking about the Charger fans or you're talking about the Padre fans?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Okay, let's give you just two dimensions. I think Charger fans are still here. I don't know whether they watch Charger games because they're fans or they hate watch because they want to see them lose. The TV ratings in San Diego are about 50% of what they were when it was the San Diego Chargers. In terms of the Padres, I'll tell you what, 51 sellouts so far. I mean, it's been phenomenal response by the community, but phenomenal disappointment when you think now that these guys are 20 games out of first place, 20 games behind the Dodgers. So I think the burning question, are they going to be able to resell these season tickets to these fans next year? Remember, they bumped their prices up for a third straight year. So they got a lot of work to get done to fix what is wrong in that clubhouse, fix that roster, and then try to resell everybody. This is a great baseball community. It is. I've told John about this before. I've always felt this was a melting pot of people from everywhere, and they'd come here to see their Red Sox or those Cubs or the Dodgers or the hated Giants and Barry Bonds. They'd come to see them, their team, in addition to all the San Diego fans who would show up here. So I think it's a really good baseball town. But somebody is going to have to tell me on our fans forum, is this the most disappointing season in the history of Padre baseball? For what they have, what we thought they were going to be, what we were promised, and what we turned out to see.
Well, maybe some of those season ticket holders for the Padres are going to switch over and go to Snapdragon and start filling up the stadium for the Aztecs because they want to support a winner. But it's a brutal year for the Padre fans. 51 sellouts. You're shelling out all that money, and they lose like 4-1. A real disappointment. But yet Charger fans, there's still a lot of them in San Diego that, despite all the shame that they get from other former Charger fans, there's still a following here. The local news media, like on television, they still follow Chargers content. Lee, of course, you do as well. So, yeah, there still is a fan base here.
It is interesting, though, because I remember, and I was working at CW6 doing sports anchor work the night they left. And we were out and we did live shots from in front of the Charger facility in Mission Valley, the practice facility. That's where all the fans were bringing their boxes of gear and dumping it in the front door and then setting it on fire.
I remember
that was pretty gruesome stuff to see. And I've hardly seen any Charger gear since they left. I think I kept count at one point. I counted 7 people that I crossed paths with that were wearing anything Charger related. That's over the last 5 to 6 years. And 3 of them were homeless people downtown near Petco Park. So, I mean, they may watch. I don't know if they hate watch or they watch because they like Justin Herbert. Okay, let's move on.
Moving on. Okay, here's a comment from Joel. He says, Melvin has to go. He hasn't been able to get all these weapons to work like a well-oiled machine. It's disappointing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversation about the fact that the players do not respond. The players don't seem to listen. Now the mandate may be from upstairs that Bob Melvin is not allowed to manage a certain way, and he's not allowed to do what he wants as it relates to guys that are underachieving. I think that's a piece of the equation. And Joel, I'll throw this at you. If you allow that general manager to fire that guy in the dugout, are you going to trust that general manager to hire the right guy? Considering we had Melvin and we had Tingler and we had Andy Green and we had that interim guy, Pat Walsh, and then he fired Buddy Black and he refused to interview Dave Roberts, who's got 750 wins at Dodger Stadium. Are you going to trust that general manager to hire the next manager based on what we've just seen with the last group I just ran through? You tell me.
Well, we all figured when he signed Melvin that he finally got it right. There weren't any rookies, first timers like Tingler and Green and Bud Black. They had to turn the page on him. I got that firing. But this Melvin situation is weird because apparently had the respect of the players. We thought he was going to, steady hand, that whole thing. And then now people are saying he can't control the superstars. Don't look at the standings. It's like he's almost like removing himself from the picture. But I don't know. Who do you replace him with that's going to change things? I mean, who?
The big question is, can you trust the general manager to make the right choice?
Yeah, well, I don't think he'll get a chance to do that.
So you think the general manager's in trouble? You just said you're going to send him a Christmas card.
Well,
He'll still be the general manager.
I support AJ, but I think if AJ fires the coach, the manager, Melvin, then that is just total admission of ultimate failure after failure after failure. And I think at that point, yeah, ownership may have to make a move. But I don't know, if I'm in charge, I keep this group together. This is supposed to be a good team.
John says this is a one-year aberration. We'll see what we have to say as we go through the month of September. We move on Fans Forum.
Moving on. So this is from a Dodger fan. Carlos says, it's so hilarious to watch this dumpster fire. As the Dodger fan living in San Diego, it is great. All off season, listen to these Padre fans saying the World Series was theirs.
Oh, just feel free to pile on the Friars. I mean, the Dodgers have had, I think, a masterful season. When you consider the holes on their roster in what we all thought was a reset season, get below the luxury tax so they can make the drive into free agency to get Ohtani. And then to see this thing come together and to see the trades they made at the deadline. Lance Lynn is 3-0 as a starter for the Dodgers. This guy was on his way out of baseball when the White Sox said, take what's left of the contract. He's done really well, and the young kids have had spurts that they've played okay. And the stars at Dodger Stadium have been so different than the Fab Four, Fraud Four at Petco Park. So, and Dave Roberts has done a really good job when the players respond, and the culture just seems to be different to me a little bit, John.
Yeah, it's a totally different ball game up at Chavez Ravine. I mean, they do a really good job managing the organization. I mean, it's like I said, I'm a Giants and Padres guy, but I got to give respect. As much as it pains me to say that, the Dodgers are a well-run organization, and they are not inflicted with the San Diego sports curse.
On we go. We got more questions here. Fans Forum is cooking.
Okay, this is from the SG Sports Channel. He says, San Jose State got viciously beaten by the USC Trojans by a score of 56-28 from the LA Memorial Coliseum, and it was absolutely devastating.
Well, I don't know if that's a Spartan fan or a Trojan fan talking about the beatdown. And yeah, it was a lopsided game, and it should be a lopsided game. But that being said, stat sheet, scoreboard, San Jose had 396 yards in offense against the Trojans.
Really?
And I have a huge issue with Link Riley and his defensive coordinator, who he brought back, Alex Grinch, who did a horrible job last year. That's why they didn't go unbeaten. That's why they didn't go deep. That's why there was no raising of the trophy in the college football playoffs because of their defense. And he brought the guy back. And the guy, if you go back and look at Alex Grinch's defensive statistics, last group of years that he's been with Lincoln Riley, the numbers are poor. And he let San Jose State go up and down the field. 396 yards in total offense for the Spartans. So I got reservations about the defense. Caleb Williams is great. The talent, the skill level talent, phenomenal. When you start playing big boy football, you got to play defense. And I don't see that at USC. So might this turn out to be disappointing?
Yeah, that was the rap on him in Oklahoma, that Lincoln Riley never really had a really good defense. So they ended up winning 44-36 or something. So, but San Jose State, I mean, they're making progress.
Oh, yes.
Not just in football, but in basketball. So I like seeing that, and they got a nice facility there. I saw a YouTube video that was ranking all the Mountain West stadiums. And yeah, the Spartans play in a pretty decent stadium up there. I mean, it's not as good as Snapdragon, not as good as UNLV, Allegiant. They play where the Raiders play. But good on San Jose. I mean, that's surprising. I mean, they have the score. I would expect the blowout to be a lot worse.
Yeah, it was just turnovers at the end. They got a really good quarterback, transfer from Hawaii, Chevron Cordero. Guy makes things happen, multi-dimension running and throw type guy. Okay, we carry on with the conversation.
Carrying on. This is from Moreno, and he says, the Aztecs have never been able to recruit locally or nationally ranked players and play in the Mountain West. Hard sell.
It really is. Everybody in the Mountain West, much like in the Mid-American Conference, they recruit kids who've got talent that you're going to coach them up. And that's what happens at San Diego State. The Aztecs, a lot of people don't know this. They had 36 players in NFL training camps this year.
Nice.
So they put a chunk that get a chance to go play. Some pan out, some don't work ever. But it's the end result of really good coaching to make these kids better players. But it's a hard sell. And The NIL, the first year, Aztecs got a group of players and transfers, and a bunch of them played. This year, not so much. Why? Because the prices on NIL guys just went through the roof. And all these big-time teams are paying all this money to all these big-time players and taking guys away that used to wind up here. So it's a huge, huge challenge. If San Diego State was ever to get into whatever the rebuilt Pac-2 turns out to be, or Pac-4, depending on what happens with Stanford and Cal in the next week or so, I would think Brady Hoke could be the guy to take him in because he knows big-time football. He's got all types of contacts. Mm-hmm. And when your credit card says Aztecs Pac-10, you'll open more doors and a chance to give a sales pitch to the kid that had come play here. I think he'd be the right guy to lead them because he's got all that experience, having been not just at Michigan, but he was a recruiter at Oregon and he was at Tennessee. I mean, he's been a bunch of different places in big-time programs, but that's awful far-fetched, John, to think that this is going to work out well for San Diego State in terms of stepping to the other street corner and becoming a Power 5.
Well, think about how long they were terrible. Like through the 90s and the early 2000s. Then they get Hoke and they get a Rocky Long. They build the program up, and it was like really a great program. We always thought they had a shot at getting into one of those, final bowl games in the BCS as a group of 5 team. But now with the NIL, it seems like maybe the talent level is dipping down again. So maybe they have to adopt that Steve Fisher, Brian Dutcher thing and find these players with a chip on their shoulder.
Well, they coach them up. I think that's the best thing you can say, and they've done it fairly successfully. But it's tough when half the brand new shiny stadium is empty. That's not good. Move on.
Another Aztec comment from T-Mac. He says, last year hurt attendance because Brady Hoke was tone deaf to the fans. Hecklinski and Burmeister experiment went on too long.
Yeah, and Brady's old school. Brady does not want to throw it 51 times per game. And that's kind of hard to swallow here because we're on the West Coast where everybody, high school to college, throws the hell out of the ball. But they've had a good record and they run it and they really develop good running backs and they play tough as cement defense. And that's their calling card. Now, maybe it'll be different with Ryan Lindley as offensive coordinator. They've got 3 young pup quarterbacks behind Jalen Maiden, and that will be the future. I don't think they're ever going to go back into the transfer portal after the Burmeister disaster at Virginia Tech. I think they're going to develop their own quarterbacks. Hopefully, they'll be able to expand this thing and throw this damn thing down the field. And that's the most amazing thing. You go back to San Diego State college football, when it was Coryell, Division II. And I understand the recruiting rules are all different. They threw the crap out of the ball. And they had all these quarterbacks who wound up in NFL camps, starting with Dennis Shaw through Brian Sipe and a whole bunch of others. And they went down the field all the time. And it was high-flying circus act. And then it kind of changed. The Luganville era was successful for the short window, but they had a young quarterback in David Lowery who chucked it down the field. And they had NFL receivers who were part of that whole thing. And then obviously they had the greatness of Falk. And right after that, Tom Kraft came in, and they had Billy Blanton. And Billy set all kinds of records before O'Connell and Lindley showed up. So there has been a progression of guys that can go down the field and make it happen, but it hasn't been very consistent. And they've never gotten the fans back from the Falk era. I closed my eyes. I broadcast. It was the first game ESPN ever put on Thursday night. San Diego State, BYU, Ty Detmer, David Lowery, Marshall Falk.
Oh, nice.
51-51 tie. What a calling card for the whole nation to see about what the WAC, that as it was known, could be. But then Luganville left. Falk left early for the NFL, went to the Colts, then to the Rams, and then to the Hall of Fame. And the programs, as good a guy as Ted Tollner was, and offensive guys, they never kept it at the level. They did get a couple more good quarterbacks later in the run, but there was never any consistency, and they kind of lost the community. Community never came back. And I'll tell you what, that 2.5 years with Falk, John, they were averaging 48,000 a game. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And that BYU game was just legendary at 51-51.
Yeah, that was a great year. I went to a number of those games, and Marshall should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. We're still so upset about that. But hey, what do you think about Braxton Burmeister playing wide receiver for the LA Rams?
Well, we'll see if his name's on the waiver wire in the next 24 hours. He didn't play much in preseason games. I tend to think maybe he winds up as an athlete on the developmental squad, but I think it's a long shot. I was kind of disappointed last year when he got here because I had watched video of him and talked to people back in Virginia about him at Vautech, and he was a really competitive quarterback. But, he got firestormed here. They could not pass protect, and he kept getting sacked, and he got hurt multiple times. And then finally, he went down and he never got up. And that's when they went to Maiden. And Maiden did a lot of, I was very impressed with Maiden kind of coming from the secondary as safety to make himself a pretty competitive guy with half a playbook and hardly enough snaps to get ready. So Maiden's got skill. Burmeister is just a terrible disappointment. Wrong kid, wrong system, wrong time, I guess.
Yeah, that was a tough one. We had a lot of hope when Burmeister came over, but yeah, I think Maiden is going to do a solid job getting this team through. The running backs look really good, so, and then Redmond was terrific.
Yep.
But next year, Maiden will be gone. They got a lot of those young quarterbacks. That's going to be interesting to see how they develop.
Well, all those young quarterbacks will have a year plus 2 spring footballs working under Ryan Lindley's playbook.
Oh, great.
That's important. By the way, there was a message on your phone from area code 801. Salt Lake City, Utah wants you to send back those 3 pages of tight end play calls. So then put it back in their playbook. Let's wing a couple more in here.
Yeah, let's get some social media comments in here. I mean, it's just so much going on in terms of comments and questions and here's a Reggie Bush comment, and this is from Fat Sal on the YouTube channel. He says, "You go, Reggie. It's the good old boy systems trying to hold you back. Get them, Bush. Show them that they're Bush League."
Oh my goodness, you don't want to get me started on this. Here's my questions, and Reggie Bush waited all these years, and now this is a problem. He wants his Heisman back, and he wants his stats back, and he wants his uniform to be retired at USC. And Reggie said he's intimating to you did nothing wrong. Well, the family sure did a lot of things wrong. And if Reggie was innocent, why didn't Reggie testify in front of the NCAA's investigators? He never did. That's a big issue to me. He stonewalled them. And obviously the family was caught. But I've seen documents. Reggie's signature is on the credit card of the 2 marketing guys, one of whom became his agent while he was at USC. So he's signing his name. That to me inflicts guilt as it relates to whatever benefits he got. And did the NCAA slander him in 2021 by saying, well, he was not eligible, therefore he should never have been given the Heisman? Well, we didn't know what he was doing at the point I made my Heisman vote, and I voted for him based on everything he did at USC. But at the end of the day, if you were innocent, why didn't you testify in front of the NCAA? You could have denounced him at the hearing. If they screwed you, they screwed you then. But you refused to participate and tell, quote, your side of the story. And by the way, there's documentation of stuff that you signed.
Well, there's been so much talk on social media about this, and a lot of people bringing up Johnny Manziel, and saying this is a double standard. Johnny Manziel was taking money for signing autographs. He got to keep his Heisman Trophy, and some people are suggesting that it might be a racism thing, where they protect the white guy and penalize the black guy.
Now, I think the rules have changed. The rules got bent. It's a different world. Ohio State's head coach, Jim Tressel, who's a friend of mine, lost his job because he had players who are selling autographs for tattoos for cash. And Ohio State got put on probation, and Tressel got fired because it happened on your watch. Well, you didn't know what these guys were doing in their off time. So it's complex. There's so many rules. But, I will close my eyes and I will say Reggie Bush, one of the greatest running backs of all time. Reggie Bush, maybe the greatest high school running back in San Diego, and that says a lot because guys like Marcus Allen and Terrell Davis and so many others came from here.
Yeah, Rashad Salam.
But I close my eyes. I also say Reggie Bush, USC scandal, probation, loss of 30 scholarships, refused to testify in front of the NCAA. If you were innocent, tell them to their face. I got a problem with that.
But if you're a football fan, wasn't that a great era for USC and Matt Leinart?
Him and Leinart.
Yeah. Coach Carroll on the sidelines. So it was a good time, but yeah, it's weird how it all worked out.
Hey, listen, I didn't mean to yell at the TV on Sunday, but I saw this on TV. DraftKings, all the betting books are now running flurries of ads.
Yeah.
And here's Matt Leinart standing in front of DraftKings logo, talking about the opening of the college football season,
Yeah.
throwing the football. He says, college football is great. It's all about history and loyalties and rivalries. Matt, your team left the Big Ten, left the Pac-12 for the Big Ten, leading to the death. Please don't use the word loyalty and rivalry.
Yeah. We got another Pac-12 comment here because there's been so much conversation about conference realignment. This is from Mark, and he says, you can try and build such a conference, but you have to realize Stanford and Cal will be gone to the Big Ten at the first opportunity, leaving you with Oregon State and Washington State, which is essentially Mountain West 2.0. And the autonomous status you crave will not be extended to a conference that is 50% G5 refugees. The goal of realignment is fewer and more power schools and autonomous conferences. If you're not already in a power conference, you never will be. To just give it up and realize the powers that be already have decided that you will be a G5 school forever.
Okay, so you're anti-Aztec. I buy that. That's okay. These schools have to look and feel comfortable with where they are, and if they can operate from a business standpoint where they are. I would tend to think if Oregon State, Washington State decided, okay, let's drop down and let's be the big boy in the Mountain West, because now a Mountain West school might be eligible for the college playoffs. But they psychologically have to adjust that kind of looks like a demotion. And financially, how do they answer the question going from a 20 million TV deal in the Pac-12, which is gone, down to 4 million in the Mountain West? It's a huge struggle. If the Beavers and the Cougars came here with Boise State and Fresno and San Diego State and Air Force, I mean, it would really be a really good football conference. But unfortunately, it would be a group of 5. And I don't see, if they did this, I don't see the Mountain West being able to jump over the double yellow line and become a Power 5 with whatever they'd call it. So Oregon State, Washington State, sure like to see it, but I don't think it'd be good for them. But so tough call coming up for the presidents of those schools.
Well, Oregon State's athletic program is of a higher level than Washington State, right?
There's money issues. Washington State's had more financial issues than Oregon State, and Oregon State is not wealthy by any stretch.
But their baseball program is fantastic.
Exactly.
You know, they've won national championships there, and they've had a lot of success in football, and even recently in the NCAA tournament. I think they kind of went deep a few years ago.
We'll see where it goes. Let's take one more here before we put the lid on this.
So put the lid on it. All right, so let's go here. This is a good one. Got to talk about Tommy Pham, and this is from JD's Third, and he says Petco Karen needs to be banned for life from the stadium. She set Pham off, though, on a 14-game hit streak. Thanks, Karen. The Arizona manager heard the slurs. Honest and good fans should stand up against this. It's not the majority of fans.
Yeah, Padres should not sweep this under the rug. And maybe they are investigating it. But, you know, if Pham knows who that woman was, and if Torey Lovello saw it, fans sitting around her, that should not be allowed to happen. Whether you're a victor for the rest of the season or you revoke her season ticket, the racial junk should not be occurring. I don't care about Pham's persona and his intensity and all that. The racial exchange should not happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. It should not happen. But there are some people saying that the fan wasn't, slurring racially, and who knows what was said, except the people that were there. But I don't know. It just seems like Tommy Pham is a lightning rod, and he just gets picked on everywhere because he's such a prickly guy, and he's gotten in all these situations and problems. I still have mixed feelings about him. On one level, I like him and I root for him. I love his believe in yourself attitude. But on the other hand, didn't he get in a fight with someone over like their fantasy football team? Was it Jock Peterson?
He wears you out
yeah.
with his style and, quote, his persona. Hey, listen, we hope you've enjoyed our Monday bonus podcast.